Hello and welcome to the Knit Girls. This is episode 429. I'm Laura, also known as Lala.
I am Leslie, also known as You Don't Call Me Les. Today is Tuesday, February 26th, 2019. It's the end of February. This month
It's flown by.
Yes.
I'm only going to have 4 projects, I think, to turn in for House Cup.
Oh no.
No, that's a big deal.
Your imaginary points will be down.
They will be down. How will I get Grand Dam if I'm not, I have to hit 1,000 points for that, and I don't think I will this time. Because I've already abandoned my owl, so it is what it is.
Yeah, if you finish it before the end of the month, I would be legit impressed.
I've got other things.
Yeah. So, yeah, we just recorded like 4 days ago, so there won't be a ton of progress, but we do have some new things to talk about, so...
Yeah, just a few.
Would you like to go, or would you like me to?
I can totally go. I'm trying to think what I've got. I have these socks that I'm in the ribbing on, so I did get a little bit of knitting time at my meeting today. So I got 2 stripes done. I went from the red stripe to the pink stripe, and everyone, so these were new people who had never seen me knit before. This was a new group of people. So it was all the teachers of the year. So one of them had, she used to work with me, and she's like, oh, you're still doing that. And I was like, I gotta keep, like, I was like, I just can't waste time. Like,
yeah.
Cannot. You know, while everyone else is playing with their phones, I'm sitting there knitting, and like 2 of the other ladies were like, are you knitting socks? Let me feel. So we had a little discussion because I got there around 15 minutes early. So I knit for a while, but then they were presenting about financial stuff, and I had to pay attention because money and I, or numbers and I too, we do not, there needs to be focus during those.
For me, I find I focus more if I've got knitting in my hand because I'm less likely to think I should sneak my phone out or I should doodle on the notepad or whatever. Like,
I was pretty focused.
We had a 2-day-long training thing back when I was in New Jersey, and I almost knit an entire pair of socks because it was an all-day, 2-day thing. And I was engaged with the speaker, and at no point did he ask me something that I couldn't...
Part of it, too, was I hit the ribbing section,
yeah.
And I can't just stare.
Right.
Like, if it was people I had known, like, people from my school, I probably would have just continued. But it was people who weren't familiar with me.
And it does take a little more brain power for ribbing.
Yeah, I needed to have that eye contact, and I can't do that with ribbing.
Yeah, no, what I knit during those meetings, it was all stockinette. So, yeah.
So I was going to show you when I got to the end of that round, but then Leslie was talking, so I just kept going.
So Laura's doing the Desert Vista Dye Works Sock Club.
I am. This is Strawberry Shortcake. It is sock number 2. I have to have these done by Thursday and posted.
Which won't be a problem.
So hopefully that won't be a problem. If I work on them during this podcast, I might be able to get at least, let's see. So this is the first sock.
So you have to go to
I'm on that green ribbing, and I have to go back to the red.
Yeah.
And of course, I have a smidge of pink there, too. So I'm almost to the pink,
is
maybe.
your signature color. I love Steel Magnolias.
On Wednesdays,
so
we
hard.
wear pink.
No, pink is my signature color.
No, I understand. What do they wear in Mean Girls on Wednesdays?
That was pink, but I don't care about Mean Girls. I'm talking about Steel Magnolias.
Okay.
Blush and bashful.
Oh, that movie.
Yes, love it so much.
Yeah, I don't.
It was it's very reminiscent of the culture of the area I grew up in. So, it has its problems, but it's just a very... I don't know.
It's an iconic movie.
Yeah.
I would say.
Got Dolly Parton.
It does have Dolly. I do like some Dolly
Julia
Parton.
Roberts, and Sally Field.
And, is it Weezer?
Weezer!
So I'm on the green. Almost there. I'm going to totally make it. And these are being knit on size 0s. It's Desert Vista Dye Works in the Strawberry Shortcake colorway. And it's living in my Fat Squirrel bag. Other things living in Fat Squirrel bags. I started a pair of Gristers. These are Stockinette hand warmers by Pearl Soho. out of the Yarn Fairy and Pixies colorway. Isn't that pretty?
That's not the yarn. That's the company name.
Oh,
it's a purple rust colorway.
It's a purple rust colorway. It's like I've never podcasted before. Urgh. Sorry, y'all. Man, I got some shadows. There we go. So, Yarn Fairy and the Pixies is the yarn company. The colorway is Purple Rust. I'll have to look up the base. I didn't bring the tag with me.
It was a DK weight.
It's like a DK weight. Yeah. It's really soft. Feel how soft it is.
Yeah.
And I'm knitting the stockinette hand warmers by Pearl Soho. I'm going to change the thumb. The thumb on how it's written is you just work back and forth and then you pick up around and create the thumb.
Mm-hmm. You're going to do like a gusset thumb?
Yeah, gusset thumbs tend to fit me better. So, and it's a long, this is supposed to be like 6 inches before you add the thumb,
mm-hmm.
but I don't think I'm going to go that far. I think I'm going to go, because it fits me pretty well right there. If I start scooching it up further, it starts stretching out.
You have the most, like, delicate little wrist.
I don't, apparently, because I didn't even go down a needle size on this. And this is the smaller, but, like, the large is just 4 stitches bigger, so it's not huge. But I'm definitely, I might just leave it at that length and just knit like another inch and start increasing for thumb to gusset. But yeah, so these are just going to be fingerless mitts. Easy peasy. I feel like this yarn has like some angora to it or something with a smidge of a halo. I'll have to look. But I'm enjoying it. This was while my kids were going through the book fair today, where I'm watching them but not really watching them. Because I hate it when people follow me around places, so I tend to not follow follow my kids around.
You make sure they don't roll off with a cart, but...
Man, if you could roll out one of those Scholastic carts, that would be amazing. But yeah, I'm more there to, I'm there to answer questions and help them find stuff versus theft protection. That's not my role. So that is in my pigeons bag from Fat Squirrel. And then the last thing that I've been working on and spending most of my time working on.
Which last week it was, I want to say like 10 inches below the arm.
I think we measured it. Maybe 12.
Or 12. Something 12. Like that. And now
we have an arm.
The body is finished.
Yep. It keeps flipping up, which is really
it hasn't
annoying.
been blocked, so.
Yep. It's got like an inch of ribbing at the bottom. So it should stay down, hopefully. And it's got one sleeve. It's
much more yellow-green than what... Oh, that shows pretty close there.
Yep.
Than what it's showing.
So you pick up the sleeve with it inside out to get that line that mimics this line up here.
Oh, okay.
But my picking up when it's... Because... with this, it's, well, I guess it is kind of all one piece, but like I had to pick up several times to get both the stitch count and to be consistent in my pickups.
Yeah, sometimes when I pick up like that, I end up skipping a row and going down, and then there's a clear line.
Yeah, and when you pick up from the inside, like that row is supposed to be on the outside on purpose, that seam. It's like a decorative feature. So, I had to be extremely consistent with how I picked up. Luckily, this is a woolen yarn. It's a smidge fuzzy.
Did you have any trouble picking up with the woolen yarn? Like with tensioning?
Yeah, it's not ideal, but it works. I'm just going to keep smacking you with my
I'm getting like air con over here.
So, things left to do. A whole nother sleeve by Thursday. And a neckband.
The neckband will take you like an hour.
Yeah. So,
and
the
tomorrow
sleeve
is
took me around,
night. So.
Yeah, the sleeve took me around 5 hours to knit. So, it's doable. Is it doable with getting the socks done too and some spinning done I would like to get done? I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. And I also have to wind yarn. This is how much I had left after the first sleeve.
Of a whole skein? Oh, that's good to know.
So, and I had about that much left of the body as well.
So do you have one whole skein left?
I have one whole skein left.
So then you should be fine.
Yeah, I think I'm going to use around 1350. And it called, my size actually called for 1,200 yards, but I did add length because I'm tall. So just some things to keep in mind. And that's part of the reason why I did a smaller ease size. I only had like 5 inches of ease on this versus
the 10 or 12.
The 12 that it calls for. But I would have run way short on yarn. And I'm knitting it on size 8s, which is one size down from the recommended.
She's knitting an air or bulky weight on 8s.
I am, which is part of, I don't know.
That is insanity.
But here's the deal. If you make, so when you knit at a looser gauge, it gives your stitches more room to rub. And with this being such a fragile yarn, I feel like that would be a serious misstep. I don't know. I'm
not second guessing you. I'm just marveling at how small a needle you had to use.
How you knit it on 9s, which is
for bulky.
For a bulky. But this is also weird bulky, and then it gets, I mean, it's mostly composed of air, but it also is not like consistent throughout the whole skein. It can go pretty.
That's a characteristic of woolen yarns. It's not usually like a huge difference, but
no.
It can vary in thickness.
Consistency. And that's hanging out in my Bink waffle bag. So I think that I didn't work at all on the scarf this week. That's another thing. I need more hours in the day tomorrow.
I just need to not nap and actually craft.
Well, I've been crafting around, I went back to crafting around 4 hours a day. So, and then over the weekend I put in a solid 8 hours each day.
This is why Laura gets more done than me. I mean, that's just a fact. I don't, because I don't want this to become a job. Like, I do the craft because I love it, for the most part, most of the time. And I don't want to burn myself out. And
if it wasn't for imaginary points, I wouldn't be pushing myself so hard.
And that is a self-imposed restriction.
It is.
So I have no sympathy.
It's a self-imposed restriction. Oh, I dropped a stitch somewhere.
All right. Anybody want to take a guess on what I'm knitting?
I know.
I'm really hoping this is the last week that you see it as something that's in progress. And unless something terrible happens, it will be.
No, it's totally going to be the
So
last
this
week.
is the wrought iron. This is a pattern by Anna Johanna. It is in Tarja, knit quote in the round. It's technically knit flat. It's just on a circular needle because of the way that it's joined. I had finished it before I went to Madrona, but the sleeves were too tight, so I left it. And when I got back, I ripped out sleeve number 1 in knit and had the yarn separated, what was left of the yarn separated into 2 equal parts. And this is about what I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. I was at Laura's house, and I tried it on several times to figure out where I wanted it to hit, and it hits right at just past my wrist, towards the tips of my fingers. And with blocking, it might grow just a little bit more lengthwise.
A smidge, because it is a superwash, correct?
Yeah. So I finished the first sleeve. I was working on the first sleeve last time. I did a lot of twisted ribbing because I didn't want it to be loose. The way that the pattern's written, you only do like 1.5 inches or 2 inches of twisted rib. Well, actually, I think it's less. A twisted rib at the end, and she doesn't have you go down a needle size. So there wasn't a lot of like, it didn't cling at the end. And I like my ribbing to be a little snugger, at least on the sleeves.
You like your ribbing to be snug?
I do. And then I picked up sleeve number 2, and I'm working on the twisted ribbing now. I am about halfway through. I ended up doing, I just knit until the twisted ribbing on this one was the right length, like until it was done and it was the right length, which ended up being like 42 rows or something. I've got it separated out with little bulb stitch markers to count every 5 rows, and then I do that on here too, so I don't have to count over and over and over. So yeah, I'm working. This is ideally the last time you'll see this
Yay!
On a needle.
How many total yards did that end up using?
Well, that's something Ashley and I talked about. I feel like the pattern under reports how much yardage you need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back and just double check. Though I did add some length to it, so that could be part of it.
Yep. And gauge affects how much yarn is used.
But I feel like I had more than 200 yards, more than what it called for the bigger size. And I'm still, like, almost running out. Not of the contrast. I have, like, half a skein of the contrast left. But of the main color.
Solid.
But again, I need to go back and just compare my finished measurements. So how much
did you start out with?
1,600 yards.
Does that include
of
both?
the fingering, of the gray. This is 400 yards of this one.
So like 2,000 yards of knitting this month. That's really good, dude.
Well, it's just 2 months, babe.
Well, you keep re-knitting it.
This is true. Like, if we counted all the times I've knitted, it's probably, yeah, it's a lot. It's more than 2,000 yards. But over the course of 2 months, not in 1 month. Anyway.
You've knit other things this year, haven't you?
I've worked on the hat a little, but that's really it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done other crafting. I just haven't
weaving
knitting.
And stuff.
Haven't been knitting. I've been spinning too.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so I'm knitting on the cuff of this twisted ribbing. I went down a needle size on the rib on the cuff. And then I have to go back up 2 needle sizes for the bind off so that it's not too snug. So many needles.
So little time.
And I think, yeah, I'm still working on that Constellate hat by Hunter Hammerson, but it didn't get touched this week, so. Well, in the past 4 days. So I don't have anything to show.
Okay.
But you have some spinning.
I do have spinning. So I am working on something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I got one of the things, the non-consumables that I got from Madrona is the new issue of Ply, which was socks. I got in a digital version, but so the digital version, when I downloaded it to my phone, every time I need to get into it, it makes me log in. Yeah, it's like password protected, and it's kind of annoying. So I opted to, and I can go back into their website and re-download it, but I can't figure out, it used to be your email was that password. I don't know. And I don't know what password I paid for it with. So I could probably look that up. I have the receipt somewhere. But anyway, I found it annoying. And I've discovered that with magazines, I really like the tactile paper. That would be the first Ply that I didn't do that with. So I went ahead and bought the issue of Ply. They gave us, if you took a class at Madrona, they gave you a $5 off coupon for a vendor. So I used that, and then it was like another $5. And then I just resubscribed to Ply. So, because I had been picking up at House of Yarn when we came through.
Like almost every issue, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not going to see my parents as much. I'm not making that trip as often.
Well, and they're traveling a lot for the rest of the year.
So then the rest of the year they're going to spend in Alaska, basically.
Yeah.
So I won't be traveling over to see them. Anyway, this past Ply issue was all about socks. And there wasn't an article about opposing plies, but they did do, this was really interesting, a stress test on different spun yarn. They put it on a belt sander, they knit samples and then put it on a belt sander to see which lasted the longest. And oppositional ply lasted, the opposing ply, which I'm doing, lasted the least longest.
Oh no.
So no, it's fun. I still want to try it. It's supposed to be better to wear though. It bounces back more towards your foot.
So what lasted the longest in that test? Do we need to go out and buy that issue of Ply to find out?
No, I have it. Well, I mean, you guys can go. It's a good issue of Ply. Hold on. How did I close out of it? I had it on my phone earlier. I must have closed out of it.
We'll have to ask Laura next week when she comes with her next bobbin.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I can't remember off the top of my head which lasted the longest. And they go into 2-ply, chain ply, I don't know. There are all kinds of options. So I'm doing an opposing ply, and what that means is that 2 bobbins are spun the same direction. And the third bobbin, it's a 3-ply, is spun the opposite direction.
So in the direction you would usually ply.
Yep, and then you ply them in the direction that you would usually ply. And it creates one ply that's going, like, kind of wonky and going the wrong way and super energized. So it's supposed to, like, hug your foot a lot better. I've never tried it before.
It's an experiment, yeah.
So I want to try it. And this is, Hello Yarn is doing this year birds. Like, everything's based on birds.
Names.
Yep.
Okay.
For colors. So there's this mandarin duck in Central Park, New York City, that's, like, internet famous.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what this is based off of. So what you can't see is some, like, really cool rust.
Yeah, there's, like, bronzy.
Yeah.
Purples.
Well, it's not showing you anything. Yep. So there's, like, a blue, purples, a bronze, like a plum. And this is the mandarin colorway. And it was the November Fiber Club shipment. It's 80% USA Targi, 10% bamboo viscose, which means it's bamboo that's been chemically treated to become a viscose, a plant-based tencel. And then 10% Tessa silk top. So it's going to have some strength from the bamboo and the silk. I thought this was a good candidate for opposing ply because viscose for me tends to, like those panda blends of yarn, tend to kind of fall off my feet. So I wanted to see if this was a better way of doing it. It's not going to be machine washable, but I hand wash all my socks, so I'm not super worried about that. And Targi's kind of, it's a shorter staple fiber, but not as short as merino. And there's lots of Targi that's grown in the U.S. So
that's
yeah.
Most of, what's his face? Jared Flood's yarn is a Targi Columbia.
Yeah, it's a Columbia primarily, I think.
Oh,
but yeah, Targi might be in there.
Targi.
It could be. I'm often wrong, but I thought it was mostly Columbia. But it could be a blend as well.
Often wrong, never in doubt.
Is that a quote from something?
Yeah. Like, even if you're wrong, people will believe you. Often wrong, never in doubt.
I've never heard that before.
I don't know where it comes from, but I've heard it.
Okay.
I'm sure somebody does know where it came from.
Yeah, we'll have to look up the etymology. There's so many words or phrases that I didn't know the etymology till I started looking them up.
So we signed Kobe up for classes for next year. Well, he put in his requests. We won't know for a couple of months probably, but for language he chose Latin because he wants to know what the words come from.
Where they come from.
Yeah.
I took Latin for 6 whole days in high school.
I had zero interest. If I could go back now, I would take Spanish because it would actually serve me well. I took French for 2 years, and I can say, like, papilla, and I can count to 10, and...
I just remember Kat saying cease.
What?
Isn't it Kat saying cease for counting to 10?
Oh, I don't know.
Isn't that, like, 6, 7, 8? 5, 6, 7?
No, God, I just transitioned into Spanish for counting.
They're both romantic
I
languages.
used to could count to 10. I think maybe now I can't.
Un, deux, trois, quatre, cinq, six. So 4, 5, 6.
I'm hearing in my head siete, ocho, nueve, bien, and that is Spanish.
It's diez, right? Isn't 10 diez? Bien's like good.
I think we should just stick with often wrong.
I
think that's a more accurate. So I did spin this week. Laura and I are.
Let's segue back to things that we know about.
Yeah. Well, that we at least have some familiarity with. Laura and I are testing out a new wheel.
We are.
And we'll more about that later. But
it's not ready for us to review
yet. Yeah, not yet. So I spun up 4 ounces of fiber that I just got from Madrona, from the Homestead Hobbyist, who's a lovely person.
Yes, and he sells really, really interesting blends.
Yeah, so this one was 50% Rambouillet, 25% Black Welsh, and 25% Llama.
So 2 of those are sheep, 1 of those is a camelid.
Correct. The colorway is Sinan Jia, which is a flower of some kind. This is a standard 2-ply, and I got just under 400 yards. So this is what it looks like. It came out nicely. It has an interesting feel to it. Like, I don't really know how to describe it.
So Rambouillet is traditionally very bouncy.
Yes.
Do you feel like it still has that bounce?
It does have some of it. Like, so, example, when I take it and I squish it, right, it takes that squish, but it doesn't bounce back completely. So if you see how I bounce it and it doesn't bounce back completely, it's still got like these indentations.
Hey, can I see that skein for a second?
Yeah.
So it's got a little bit of drape.
Yeah.
On the camel. Or not camel.
Llama. Yeah. I really like the colors. It was a lot of sort of oranges and purples with these pops of gray in there. I plan to probably weave something with it. I'll combine it with something else and weave something with it. It's really an interesting spin, and I enjoyed it. The only parts I didn't was every now and then I would get like a little clump of the black Welsh.
Yeah.
And it didn't want to straighten out. It wasn't common. Maybe 5 times in the whole spin.
Black Welsh is down fiber.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I enjoyed spinning it. So hopefully I'll continue to spin some. I reached out to to Jane at Shocked about getting some weaving bobbins.
Yes.
And so I told her what I wanted, and she was like, well, are you doing this for weaving or for spinning? I said, well, for both. About 20% weaving and the rest for spinning. We can spin like sweater lots and wind off an ounce here and an ounce
You're
there.
supposed to wind off all your bobbins and then before you apply them.
Yeah, that's total crap.
It's not total crap.
And she's like, well, Judith McKenzie uses this size for plying. And I was like, sure, that sounds good. Let's do that.
That's sweet.
But, yeah, this year...
It evens your twist when you do it.
I just don't see... So you're saying that we're supposed to, let's say...
I'm not saying.
Okay.
The professionals
Whatever.
in the field say.
That I spin 4 ounces and it's separated on 2 separate bobbins.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me that according to, gospel of the smart people, I'm supposed to wind off each one of those bobbins onto a separate bobbin.
Yep.
What the hell for? Because
you can rewind onto another full-size bobbin.
But why? If you're not adding twist.
It evens the twist out.
But wouldn't you even it out when you're plying? Like, you're moving that twist back down the... I mean, I guess if it's super duper energized, it would start to curl up, but...
like, over the length of the entire... Like, let's say you have 400 yards finished, so 400 on each bobbin. If you're doing a 2-ply, it evens it out across those whole 400 yards.
I understand what you're saying,
Okay.
but I guess I'm curious, because, like, I can understand where you're coming from. Like, when you start, you might be adding lots more twist, and then towards the end, you might be getting lazy and adding less twist. Like, I understand, what you're saying, evening it out. But if you're applying, and you haven't moved them to other bobbins, then you're smoothing that twist out as you go back, though, right? So wouldn't it have the same amount of twist?
No, you're not smoothing out as you go back. You're not changing the twist at all when you're applying on the singles.
But I smooth mine as I ply.
You're smoothing the finished ply. You're not moving twist back.
But I do that. I smooth the twist as I'm... Maybe I've been spinning wrong all these years.
No. I don't know. I've never watched you apply.
Somebody who's smarter than us should...
No, there's a book about it.
Weigh in on this.
If you're really interested in finding out more about, like, moving to weaving bobbins and how that affects twist, in J.C. Boggs' 51 Yarns book, it's one of the 51 things that she discusses.
So, but you don't do that.
I did for my sweater spin.
So every single bobbin, you unwound.
I wound onto a weaving bobbin.
Really?
Yeah, they're all in my house. I haven't plied it yet. They're all in my house because I haven't finished the spin. It's that Shetland fleece I got from Ross Farms.
How many weaving bobbins do you have?
Oh, like 20. That's why I needed you to get more so I could finish the project.
That's where all my weaving bobbins went.
Yes. That's why I need more.
So, are you supposed to do this winding? I'm sorry for those of you who don't spin and are stuck listening to this. Are you supposed to do this for every spin? Like, even for 4-ounce bumps of spinning? Because this seems like horse shit. I've already done the work. Like...
So, it's like the difference between wet blocking a piece and steam blocking a piece.
But I wet block anyway. That's a terrible analogy.
No, well, but you wet block everything because you know eventually that you're going to have to wash stuff. There's people who just steam block their pieces. Like their lace.
I think this is one I'm just going to have to accept that I don't do it and move on. It's probably the best.
If you want to see some of the research, and Jillian Marino teaches a class called Pretty Maids All in a Row, I believe is the name, and that's about this, about moving to weaving bobbins and how you can keep your color consistent with weaving bobbins.
Now I'm going to feel guilty if I don't do it.
No, don't feel guilty. Just because someone says it's best practice, like, so people say best practice is to let your bobbins sit for 24 hours before applying because
I
it
usually
evens
do
out
that
the
just
twist
because I'm lazy.
Yeah, like well, that also evens out the twist. But just because it's best practice doesn't mean that you have to do something. Like, best practice also includes, like, checking your twist angle the whole time you spin. I'm
never gonna do that.
So it's just what works for you.
I guess maybe I can accept that because, like, I genuinely do not give a crap about grist or twist angle or any of that. Don't care. I mean, I'm sure that there's valid reasons why all that should be considered. Don't care.
I do. Not so much twist angle, but grist. Like, I'm sure I'll get into twist angle as I get more into it.
And maybe I care about it and I just don't associate it to what the name grist or the word grist actually means.
You do because
she's got her teacher face on. It is so on.
Look, it's been a long teacher day. But it's like, okay, so best practice would include, like, washing your car once a week. Like, you know, especially if you live in the Northeast. But besides my father, there are very few people who wash their car once a week.
So translate grist into...
So grist is...
dumb people speak here.
It's not dumb. I don't want you to call yourself dumb because that's not true. So the definition of grist is how many yards you get per pound, essentially. So it's the density of the spin that you're doing. So to make it a little bit more, okay, so let's say you have 100 grams of Volmisa. Volmisa has a super dense twist, right? It's a very heavy yarn. So you know Volmisa off the top of your head. So it's 150 grams, right?
For 570 something yards.
Okay, so you get 570 yards for 150 grams. Now, if I had, let's say, Miss Babs, yowza, it's still about that same yardage, but it's like 250 grams. Because it's a heavier weight yarn.
So it's yardage related to weight? Like...
Yes. It's density of wool. So it's your yardage related to your finished weight.
So, but how are you supposed to measure that as you're spinning?
So it's yards per pound. So when you finish 4 ounces...
So it's like a thickness measurement?
It's a density measurement.
But how do you measure the density when you're spinning?
Well, it's yards per pound. So this is... Okay.
You keep saying those
I know.
two things.
Okay, so this is 4 ounces, and I got 380 yards. How many... That was 4 ounces? How many yards did you get?
380, 394, I think.
Okay, so we have fairly similar. These two are very similar in their grist. Because they're both 2-plies, and they both weigh the same.
But how would I know that?
And they both have similar yardage.
As I'm spinning, how would I know that?
Oh, you don't know until you have a finished skein.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Is that... I must have misunderstood.
That was where I was confused.
So it's dense. So some fibers are naturally, like, heavier than other fibers. Like, silk is naturally heavier. So your yardage per pound is different on something like that. Or if it's the more twist you add, the heavier it gets.
Because that's like a worsted versus woolen.
One thing that grist is good for is if I'm doing, let's say I'm subbing yarn for a sweater. And I've got this woolen spun quarry, which is 200 yards for 105 grams. And I want to sub that with another bulky weight. Well, if I go to sub it with Malabriga Rasta, that's technically a bulky weight, but it's 83 yards per 100 grams. Those two things, you're not going to get the same result.
Right.
So that's a good way to use grist. And Ravelry has... all the yarns. When you look at like a pattern, there's the suggested yarn and you can see the fiber composition, so you can kind of find something that's similar. And then you can look at the grist, how many yards it is per like 100 grams or per pound, which would be a little over 400 grams. And you can figure out if it would be a good sub, because grist is going to affect your gauge at the end of the day.
So if I was shooting for a certain grist, would I just use twist angle and a thickness measurement?
So you could use a thickness measurement. You also need to look at fiber composition.
Well, that's assuming that
everything's the same.
Everything's that I spun last year a beautiful skein of 100 yards of cashmere 2-ply, and I wanted to recreate it.
So that was probably like 200 grams, unless you spun cashmere thick, which people don't typically do because it's a short staple fiber.
And it's expensive as hell.
And it's expensive. So you would look at that skein that you already spun and look at the individual plies, kind of untwist it a little bit, and you would sample and try to get a similar looking
twist angle, or
twist
that's
angle,
my thing.
Yeah.
Like,
twist angle.
If I'm trying to recreate it, what are the key things that I would need to do?
So you want the same amount of twist, you want the same fiber,
and the same thickness,
diameter wise.
Okay.
Was that super confusing? I bet it was.
Sorry.
Hopefully it helped.
I'm just gonna wave my hands for people who tuned out. Okay, you can come back.
But like yarn substitution is a big. That's one of the classes that I teach, but that's like a big thing, and knowing grist is really, really important. So that's one thing to think about. Also, Jillian Marino is like the queen of grist. So if you have the opportunity to take a class with her, you totally should. Okay?
She's lovely, and I like her lots, but I don't want, like, I trust her implicitly when it comes to spinning, and I don't want her to tell me that I have to do this every time. Like, that's the thing.
I'm going to text her right when we get done with this and say, Leslie says she doesn't have to rewind her bobbins. I don't feel like that's true. Tell her the truth, Jillian Marino.
And you know what's terrible is if she told me to do it, I probably would. I'd be miserable the whole time. But, well, except for sweater spins. It makes sense for sweater spins.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense.
So I have an up next on the needles thing I wanted to talk about a little bit. And I haven't even mentioned this to Laura because it just came up. Alright. So I'm going to add nitty.
So this is your up next on the needles?
Yeah, I've got links. I don't know why I don't just click the friggin' links like an idiot. Okay.
No, you got it. Don't call yourself an idiot anymore today.
You are not the boss.
I'm stepping in.
Alright, so let me add this here. Add window capture. Yep. Alright, and I'm going to edit here. Okay, so I came across this
I want to see
article in Knitty.
Extreme 2-in-1 2 socks. Is that where you knit one inside the other?
Yes, but okay. So this is different than what I've done before. So I have done double knitting before, and with double knitting, let me open a new window here and show you guys. Sorry, I'm gonna do, most of the time when you double knit, you've got wrong sides together. So let's do socks, all socks, and let's go down and do construction, double knitting. Alright, so let's use the most popular one here, sockception. And this is a great example. So most of the time when you're knitting two socks at the same time and you're knitting one of them inside of the other, so when this gets folded back into, it's only pulled out like this for the picture. Normally it's folded tucked inside, in, right? So you've got
like a liner on a hat.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got your knit side of color A, and then your purl side of color A, and then your purl side of color B, and then your knit side of color B.
It's like a sandwich.
Like a sandwich, exactly.
Yeah. Like the two end pieces of a sandwich of bread.
Yes.
Okay.
So your pretty sides are opposing. It's like if you're sewing and you sew right sides together or wrong sides together, depending on what you're sewing.
There's a lot of people who took pictures that way.
Yeah, it's really interesting to be able to pull it out and do that. But in order to make that, you're always knitting on one pair and you're always purling on the other pair, right? So, and I don't love purling enough to try to do 2 socks at once. But this article actually has you knitting, this particular method has you, both socks are knitted, and I'll go back.
When was this published?
It's like 2006.
I feel like my sister did this.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
But let me pull up a good picture of them in progress.
Oh, I like the fact that some people did baby socks.
Yeah. So, sorry, I'm trying to... How did they do that? Because that's wrong sides together. I wonder if they did it. Sorry, I've looked at several of these today, and it was always one right side and one wrong side. I can't see that. That's too fuzzy. Alright, here we go. This might... Yeah. So this is your right side, and you can see that because of the knit stitches. And then if you pull it out, this one's got purl stitches. So,
and it uses a short row heel?
Yes. The only time you actually physically separate the stitches is when you're getting ready to Kitchener the toe. Everything else is done on one set of needles. So there's this article in Knitty about it, and she gives you sort of a recipe, and step by step, as well as how to fix problems.
Yeah.
So what I think I'm going to do is, the way that it's written, it's kind of like, look at how amazing I am, kind of smug, but like that's what she's saying you should do if you manage this. Like you should take it to your knit group and show off how amazing you are, which, you know, whatever, to each their own. But I just think the technique is really cool, so I want to try it.
Oh, there's a good picture.
Yeah, so let me see if I can make that bigger. And I got to go back down just a little bit, but sorry, this is not an exact science here. But yeah, so you can see on her needle, this is sock A with the knit side, and she's pulled out sock B just so that you can see it. But it's, you know, right side, wrong side, right side, wrong side. They're layered. So it would be a lot less hassle to knit that way with just knit stitches versus...
I think it's a lot less hassle for me to knit my socks separately.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just want to try it because it's essentially, you are handling 2 strands at once.
But double knitting and I don't get along usually.
And that's fine. And I may fail spectacularly. That's fine too. But what I was going to do was wind up 2 skeins of DK in different colors so that it's very clear, the different skeins. Yeah. And just try it.
Are you going to do baby socks or full-size socks?
I'll probably do full-size because DK, they don't take very long. And for me, knitting small things is more stressful than knitting like a regular size, normal adult size sock. And if I hate it, I'll rip them out and make socks. Or make hats. It's fine. Yeah. So, but it's something I want to try, so that might be...
No, it's good to push yourself.
A thing that I do in the next, you know...
Yeah, Elsa's good not doing yarn overs on your needles at the end of the row.
Also not having to re-knit sleeves 50 times. That's also good. For books, I am still listening to the Kate Daniels series. I finished number 9, so I switched to Iron and Magic, which is the Hugh d'Ombre spinoff, which is between books 9 and 10. So I'm listening to that. I've listened to it once before, but I'm listening to it again. And I'm rereading the Clutch series by Piper Scott because Laura told me there was a new book out.
There is.
And I started to read it, and I was like, I forgot who all the characters were.
I love some dragon romance. I just went back.
Yeah, it is a romance series, 2 male romance, where the men, it's shifter, so there's like dragon, and the men lay eggs. So that's super fun. But it's an interesting, funny, you know, kind of series.
Yeah. So we had a comment about calling books male
Versus, because when it's when I say regular,
no, let's not. Yeah.
Run-of-the-mill romance book is typically male-female.
Yeah. So we're gonna try to say gender on every romance that we do as a result. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
Chrissy,
that's a good point.
Because we want to make it.
I hadn't thought about
the norm. So the Kate Daniels are male-female.
Mm-hmm.
Romance-wise, they're not. I don't really consider them
have
romance.
Characters in them that are like Barabbas and Christopher. Are, you know, it's sort of a budding male-male relationship. They don't really get into it, but yeah, it's not primarily a romance. There's a romance aspect to the books, but that's not really what the books are.
They fall under urban fantasy, I think.
They're awesome. If you haven't read Alana Andrews and you like paranormal or fantasy or even the non-military sci-fi, you might like Alana Andrews.
Yeah.
What about you? What have you been reading?
I've been listening to a middle grade book called The Parker Inheritance. I'm still listening to that. It's really good. If you like Westing game type stuff, mysteries, I think every child that grew up in like the 80s and 90s read the Westing game, but you hadn't, right? It came out, it won the Newbery in like 77 maybe? So it's been around for a while. It's by Ellen Ruskin. It's an awesome mystery. It's kind of like a puzzle mystery. And this actually references back to the Westing game. It's a puzzle mystery, but it has, I was talking to one of my coworkers about it today. It's got so many more elements to it that really make you think about racism, how gender, and other aspects. So it's really, really a great book. I'm highly enjoying it. I highly recommend it. It won the Coretta Scott King Honor Award this year. So I'm excited to be reading that. Yeah. I think that's about it. Leslie just added something to the show notes. I've been enjoying, more than reading, I've been watching a ton of The Umbrella Academy.
Which is a new show on Netflix.
Which is kind of like, it reminds me of Ryan Reynolds'
Deadpool?
Yes, it kind of reminds me of Deadpool in a lot of aspects. How they bring in the music in certain aspects.
It's very dry humor, less cursing.
More just as violent, I would say. And it includes time travel, which is not usually my jam. I usually hate that.
Misanthrope Avengers.
Or X-Men.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of X-Men, which is where Deadpool originated from.
I'm only like 3.5 episodes
because she refuses to watch episode 4.
Dude, I haven't watched it since yesterday. Like...
Amy Florence and I are going to have a separate conversation.
Go for it, dude.
I need you to catch up. I'm waiting for Leslie to catch up. So I finished episode 4 and started episode 5, and I wanted to talk about it to Leslie, and she won't catch up.
You know, it's things like work. I just haven't had time. I will watch it tonight as I finish this stupid sleep.
Okay.
But speaking of watching, we had our VKN this past weekend.
We did. It was super fun.
It was a lot of fun. And it's something that we do for our Patreon members who are $3 an episode or more. Patreon is a way that you can support your favorite creators, whether that's us or somebody else. You should check them out on patreon.com.
Yeah, I want to talk about supporting creators when we're done with this aspect.
So, we were talking, I don't even remember how we got into it, but we got into talking about the show RuPaul's Drag Race. I think we mentioned that we were watching it the day before, and so, that started the conversation.
We watched the finale of the third All-Stars.
Fourth.
Yeah, I really don't count the first All-Stars. I don't think many people do.
I don't count the third, because I'm not a Trixie fan. But, spoiler! Anyway, we got to talking about it, and, there were several, like, really avid fans in there.
And we're pretty avid fans.
The rest of the people were just like...
Poor them.
I've never watched this show. And we're like, you should try it. It's great.
Yeah.
Which you should. It's great. And for things that are out of your normal bubble, like whether that's, men in drag or transgender issues or whatever, the more you see it, the more normal it becomes.
Yep.
So exposing yourself to it is not going to be a harmful thing, and it's done in a humorous way as well, so that helps. But anyway, we were talking about doing a watching.
It's also done in a very edited way.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's at least you see a culture, or not necessarily a culture, but you see people that you maybe wouldn't see in your everyday life, depending on where you live and where you go and all that. But we're talking about having a watch party.
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll be able to do it this week. We'll have to schedule it.
We're doing a Patreon event.
But maybe as we get deeper into the season, we're talking about doing so Ravelry for every group. Every group has its own chat room. Most groups don't use it. But it's like the old AOL chat rooms. It's text only. And I think it would be really fun to do a watch along where we can all talk to each other, real time, but not in a distracting way with video. Because for me, I can only hear one
thing
conversation at a time. Otherwise, I get really twitchy and angry because crazy. And I have a prescription that guarantees that. I'm not using that facetiously. Literally crazy. Need the crazy pills. Better living through chemistry. But yeah, so if you're interested in doing that, you should let us know. This is the rambliest episode possibly we have ever had. But yeah, let us know in the thread if it's something you're interested in. And you wanted to talk about supporting creators.
So there's a way that you can support any creator for free, and that is word of mouth. So if you have a creator that you enjoy their feed, whether it's Instagram, whether they're providing you with awesome knowledge, or there's just something you enjoy with it, spread the word, and that's a great way of supporting people that you adore for free, especially creators. I had talked about that on Instagram stories 2 months ago, and I meant to mention it here as well. But word of mouth, leaving reviews when someone's like, hey, you like watching knitting podcasts, or you like doing cross stitch, or you like knitting, can you tell me some resources? Spreading the word of mouth, or just spreading word of mouth on what you enjoy, and or where you're getting good information.
When you spread that word of mouth, maybe include a personal note as to why you love that particular creator, or that blogger, or that chef, or whatever that may be.
And a lot of you do this for us already, so thank you so much for supporting us that way. Also, if you buy a product that you see on the show or on anyone's show, letting that creator know that you saw it on a specific podcast or Instagram or whatever can be super helpful as well. So it's a little bit of a time commitment, but not a monetary commitment that you can use to support people. So I thought that was worth mentioning. And thank you, everyone, because I know you all support us a lot, so we really appreciate that.
God knows why. Almost 9 years, and people still watch us for some reason.
Almost 9 years. Yeah, at the end of next month will be 9 years. 9-year anniversary.
Yep.
We'll have to look up what anniversary that is.
God, I don't know.
Tinfoil.
Sushi.
That'd be amazing. I'd take you for some sushi, my friend.
I am down with that. Well, anyway. That's it for this week. We hope you guys have a lovely week, and we will see you again the 1st of March.
Bye, y'all. We're going to kick off the month of Laura.